And we are officially live to the internet. Uh, for those of you out there who are maybe jumping in quickly, thank you kindly. Hope you're having a good one. Tonight, just like 2 weeks ago, we are joined by the amazing Keith Grachow. We're going to talk. Well, I don't know yet. I've had some questions throughout the week that sort of came to mind that I wanted to ask you. And while we do that, you're going to do some level of drawing. Are you gonna? You think you're gonna draw something totally new for us? Are you gonna work on something? What's the plan?
Same, but well, I guess we're waiting to see if people come on.
Yeah, we
I can, you know what, whatnot. I'll just doodle.
just doodle. Go
Let's
for
just
it.
see. Let's just see what happens. It's a little bit more. Maybe it creates some interesting conversations. So
Awesome.
yeah.
On where is it here? So we've got one person live, likely on YouTube. Hello out there in YouTube land, possibly on Twitch, and then in Instagram, we do have a viewer as well. Um, might be yourself if you're doing that to be able to see the chat.
I
But
am. So
okay, perfect.
there's,
So the one is you. All right, perfect.
well, there's a couple of people on there that are.
Oh, awesome. All right. How? Oh my God, Keith! It always amazes me that you do this so fast. Um, wicked.
Yeah, I had no idea what this was going to be, and then it just kind of became some artist drawing something.
I dig it. We're getting a little meta. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Well, you know what? To kick it off and try and confound you while you're doodling and working away. The question that sort of came to mind last weekend. I went to um, Wayside Comics for their Saturday series that they've been running through February,
Yep.
and I was lucky enough to meet Stephanie Cook and
Hmm.
have a nice chat with her. Took some pictures of her, sent those her way, and what caught me about her. So her books, for those out there who don't know, Stephanie's books are kid centric. I would say
Hmm.
young adult to child reader. There goes my phone. Silence. Um,
She has an affinity for raccoons.
yes, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was amazing and hilarious. And one thing that caught me is she had kids come up, and the thing that like really drew me to her was she engaged them so well. She
Hmm.
talked with them, had this instantaneous rapport, it got them more engaged by doing that. Explained what her book was, so she was able to pitch it, which from a sales point of view is great. But also, I think in the way that she did it, by going to their level, by showing how excited she was to have worked on it, and feeding off of their excitement of checking out her work, just kind of got them like riled up and excited. And I just thought that was
Hmm.
super cool. So the question I guess I'll pose for you, Keith, is, or maybe just speak on your experience. What is the importance of engaging with people at cons and shows and stuff when you've got a finished book and you're trying to get people to obviously buy it? And what are some of the best ways of doing that in your experience?
It's really funny you're actually asking this question, especially talking about Stephanie, um, because Stephanie and I, and Andrew Stevenson of TO Comics, we've been chatting uh,
Okay.
uh, kind of about that specific one aspect of that of how we can get the next generation of comic creators to help sell better, or to learn how to pitch their books, uh, learn how to what the steps are once they've created a story. What are the steps after? You know, especially if connected with like anthology like TO Comics,
Hmm.
maybe their first time. So when you're a young person or just getting into the industry, there's a lot of places that have resources, but it's also kind of hard to find. Like, what are the questions to ask, or you may not even have the question to ask, right? So I wanted to do something with Steph and Andrew because they're both great advocates for the comic book community, in regards to their wealth of knowledge of, anywhere from getting a Kickstarter going to, as you said, engaging with people in front of your table, to getting those resources that you know are out there, but you're not sure where to go or the questions to ask. And we're hoping to be able to take that information and maybe help mentor this next generation of creators. Specifically, the part that I would play would be the sales part of it, because it's one of those things that, you've seen me at work, at shows and stuff. I'm pretty competent when it comes to selling. I've been doing it probably since I was 14 or 15. I'm a little bit of I'm an introvert, but in the way of, it's not so much that I get shy. It's more that I like my own space, but I'm very good at, when I need to turn a switch on, to be able to talk to people, to be able to communicate, I hope, in a way that people can understand where I'm coming from. And the sales part of it is the ability to figure out what I have in front of my table and how to get that across to the people that are walking by me. And so, I mean, there's really no secret in the sauce. It's just the thing that people don't do that I see when I'm at shows is they don't get people to interact and get not only to get interact, but also to have like a possession over what they've created. And the easiest ways to do that is somebody walking by your table, you acknowledge them, hey, how are you doing? And then you put the book in their hand. Right. And then the harder part is figuring out like the pitch to use, what words to use to sum up a hook, so to speak, of what it is that would want to encourage the person to want to purchase the book. Right. But the easy part, at least for me, and I think I can understand some people are very shy, and it's really, really difficult for them to speak up. So I understand that it's not as it's an obvious thing to do, but it may not be simple for people to do. But if they're interested in selling their books, hello, how are you? Here's my book, and putting in their hand, it's really how you can get somebody to kind of have ownership over what you've created, because you essentially, once the book leaves your possession, it's now their story. And case in point, when you were looking at Saltwater or reading Saltwater and kind of told us what you thought Saltwater was, and saying that you felt it was going in a horror oriented direction. And we were like, whoa, like that wasn't something that we had actually thought about in such a way. Maybe it was more subliminal, but you really put a fine point on it. We're like, yeah, you're right. It is going in a hard direction. And that was something that you took out of it, that we weren't necessarily like trying to force down your throat, but you were picking that up, and you were able to like process it in a way that we were like, well, yeah, great. It's no longer ours. It's yours. You're interpreting that story in a great way that we can now, let other people know. And that's really, I think Steph also, she's really great at connecting with her audience so that they are excited for what she's created, and then they take possession of it, and it becomes something more. And it's a world now that they can look into and imagine themselves in, and whether it's hanging out with like witches or raccoons or whatever she's writing about, they can now imagine themselves in that place, and that's exciting, especially for young people who have such great imaginations. Right, as we get older, I think imaginations kind of shrivel a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's salt water there. So yeah, I always, that's one of the things I always try to impart upon fellow creators, if they're the type of creator that wants to sell their product and their table, because there are some creators that are purely commission based, and um, I do understand your head's down if you're drawing all the time. It's hard to keep on putting your head up and stopping, and as I'm doing here, I've stopped a bit, and I'm going to start again. But the whole I look at somebody like Mike Ruth, and Mike Ruth, I think, is kind of in that similar. He's a fellow comic book creator, very well known within this area, the industry at large, and he is fantastic at uh, um, talking to the people in front of him while drawing, and just, he's a great storyteller, and I always admire Mike and listening to what he has to say. I love the way he speaks. He has such a really interesting patois, the way he arranges words and stuff. So I just think there is a place for people who are just commission based to be able to interact with the people in front of them, and sell the story of whatever they are to them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think you've nailed or you've hit the nail on the head, rather, because Mike has such a talent for not only the way that he speaks, the way he tells stories while he's working, which is wild to me. But yeah, he has this way of just sort of bringing people in. I think there's something about him, and I think it's a cool little power that he has. And a good friend of ours, Paul Kemp here. This is Major Treat Konrad. Thank you for another chance to watch Keith work. Paul, thank you for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're working on something. Well, Keith is doodling away, creating some masterpiece out of nowhere.
Yeah, I just figure I'd be a little bit meta with my, because I was going to do a semi-finished piece tonight, like where I would show the middle of the process, but at the last minute I'm like, nah, I'll just doodle. But I think I will actually draw the person, me, I guess this is me drawing the thing that I drew earlier, and I could always show that at some point. So
Okay.
it's kind of like a very was it Kaufman-esque, like in somebody's head, seeing through their eyes, in their life, that kind of thing. So okay. So how you doing, Paul?
We'll see if he gets back to us. Yeah, Paul, tell us how you're doing. Drop a comment. For those watching, feel free to ask questions. No matter what it's about, as long as it's related to comics, I'm sure either Keith, from an experience and wealth of knowledge of making comics, or myself, just through having done all the interviews I've done with different creators, can give you some advice. Wicked. I guess one of the things that impresses me about what you do, Keith, is out of this doodling, out of these random lines that you're putting down and pulling stuff out of, you must innately, not innately, but you must have a very well practiced set of figure drawing skills and things like that. I'm sure you've been asked this many times at conventions and stuff, but what would be like an exercise you'd recommend someone to do to be able to practice figure, understanding the human anatomy, and putting that into comics, essentially?
Well, I mean, there's two trains you can go. which is life drawing or drawing for your imagination. All right.
Okay.
Life drawing, you go to a cafe, you learn how to get the essence or gesture or doodle of a person that's in front of you. You know, the whole idea of a gesture, just to kind of very quickly put it down, not worry too much about detail and things like that. That's where doodling, I think, is a good skill set to learn, because you kind of you're not so delicate with your lines. So anyway, you go to a cafe, you go to a place where there's people, or any if that's where you're trying to learn about anatomy and proportion, and the way that fabric falls on people, the way that light and shadow fall on people, and I think your intent with that is essentially, as I said, it's just to build like a memory bank, right? To find interesting characters, or to try to remember how folds of fabric are on the arm, or how people stand, how they move. So it's to try to remember that, so that you can use it and apply that when you're drawing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then the part that is the imagine part, the track to go with the imagine, that a lot of that is learning how to create like a figure in like a mannequin, and being able to move it, and then once you learn like the basic parts of like the proportions of the head, the body and the arms, legs, all that kind of stuff. Once you learn the shapes that they're made of, and you can construct, like let's say you put a person into like a rectangle, and if you can draw the rectangle from all different positions, looking up at it, and you can draw the figure, and knowing the proportions of the figure, you can do something where you put the figure in that rectangle, and therefore you can actually know what a figure looks like. If you're looking, a worm's eye view of them, or a bird's eye view of them, having maybe never seen that particular view, but you're learning by knowing how to construct a figure, you should be able to place them in all different ways, in ways that you may not have ever seen them placed, or not in a way that you see often, right? Somebody, for example, like jumping between buildings, like a Spider-Man, like it's not something you see very often. You can see it now because people can take their cell phones out and like somebody's doing parkour, you can film that, right? But so you can find that kind of stuff online, but I think you need to learn how to draw from imagination, because what you see in a video or a photo, it can be skewed. So learning how to actually see to know what it is and to be able to draw it in your imagination, and then compare it to a reference you may get, and make sure that you can compensate for any kind of warp, fisheye warp, or anything like that you may get from the the camera. So, and I can tell you, Dave Ross, he's an amazing comic book creator. He printed a book. I can pull it out. It's I think a drawing from the imagination, or something like that. Figure drawing from the imagination. That's a fantastic book. Do you know which one I'm talking about, or do I need to get it?
I mean, if you physically got it on hand, go for it. I'm always happy to show off some products.
Let me just. There we go. Yeah, freehand figure drawing for illustrators. So I was completely off the name of the title, but yeah, this book by Dave Ross, I've read over a few times. It's fantastic.
Oh, cool.
It's just a great book for. I don't want to show too much here, but like it's got your figures and learning the way that the figure stands, and the S curves and C curves and all that stuff. But it's and that's really with anything. If you can imagine how to draw a figure you learn that it's made of shapes and forms, then you can draw anything, really, anything you've never seen. And that's how you have some artists that can create some really fantastical looking scenes that don't exist in real life. So it's just, yeah, it's just practicing the between the imagined and the life drawing.
Yeah.
So I don't do life drawing classes. I haven't done those in years, but I do recommend those. I know that the Grade Studio in Toronto is offering like you can pay for like a class. I can't remember. I think they're doing it like twice a month or something like that. They're all over the place. You can find them. Sometimes artists will organize them, or your local art school will have them that you can pop into and pay, some kind of fee. If you don't want to do that, then as I said, you just go to a cafe, right?
Yeah,
but
100%.
the life drawing, for if you're wanting to see somebody, to see the muscles and how they move, a class like that would be the best, because they're usually nude, or they're draped, nude with fabric or something like that. And those are, I haven't done those in years, but those are excellent too.
Cool. Yeah. Actually, on that, so Raid has them. The next one's actually Thursday, March 7th. It's $25. You can go to meetup.com and get it, or a ticket. And then I know that, what are they called? Youthful Vengeance.
Oh yeah, yep, that's right.
They do one as well. And they're at 1110 Dundas Street West. So they do another similar one. But a quick shout out, Keith. We have, it looks like,
Oh my God.
both of your parents and Aaron watching the stream. So hello to the Grachow family.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
And they say, they say, we love watching them work. Can't get enough of them. That's wonderful support right there.
Yep. Hey, guys. I'll get a call later.
Good. No, I like that, and that's something I've talked about with a couple other creators, just sort of in passing, not on a show or anything like that. Was actually the importance of family and community support when it comes to an artist, especially a new one, being able to have the confidence, the courage, to not only get out there, right? Because you can make your own comic and you can say, hey, here's my book, I've made it. But having not done it myself, but having just talked to a lot of people about it, it takes extra grit, extra willpower to be able to stand out there and go, hey, here's my book, I made this maybe last year, I'm working on another one or whatever, and continue to put yourself out there. And just, I cannot overstate enough the importance of your family, your friends, your local people just coming out to acknowledge, to say hi, to support when they can. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing that for those watching.
And because they're watching, they can they know what it's like, because my mom and my dad, we table together, because we have children's books. My mom and I have children's books together. So they have seen me sell firsthand, and they've done it on their own. And so they know what it's like to interact with people and to get them to come over. And my mom, it's great watching her take the book and pitch people. And my sister, Erin, for the first time actually watched me sell books when I was in New Orleans. So it was fun to see how she saw me selling, because I've done this for many years, and I try not to take it for granted. I do try to look at it as a privilege that I have, that
Mm-hmm.
people can, that I get to do something I love, and people can get this, creation that I've made with my, something that I've created myself or my family or friends, and it's I always appreciate it, but it's always great to see that through somebody's fresh eyes, to see where somebody's never actually been to a show. So it was my sister's basically her first time at a comic book convention, seeing like how people are, and she had a blast. She enjoyed, because she's an extrovert, where I'm the introvert in the family. So she
Mm-hmm.
loves talking to people, and she enjoyed the whole community that we've created. So, yeah, it's like I'm very lucky that I've been able to create books with. Hi, Janet. That's another family friend. She's kind of seen me since I was a little kid, developing my art skills.
Oh, that's
But
so cool.
yes, I saw. Yeah, it's really cool that I have that connection with my mom and my parents and my sister, and that we're continuing to create stories. My mom and I are working on a graphic novel prose book hybrid thing that's it's been a lot of work. I've never written so much in my life, and I really very much appreciate what a writer goes through now, having been through this process for the last few years. I It's not that I took it for granted before, but I understand. It's just there's a lot of work, and lots of rereading of your story over and over and over and over again. But still, I still enjoy it. I very much enjoy the process of creating with my family.
That's awesome.
And I'm very lucky. I feel very lucky that I've got that.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I look forward to getting my hands on it when it is done. When it is done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Paul has jumped in our comment section to let us know he's doing great. Thank you very much. I'm building a 3D Steamboat Willie scene for my students to practice their animations as I
Oh.
listen, but I'm not as good at multitasking as Keith and Mike. Um, I mean, that sounds really cool. I hope it's going well, Paul.
Yeah, I'll see
Yeah,
Paul Toronto Comic Con on the Friday, I believe.
right
So
on.
yeah.
I, I I have yet to hear from them if they're like I've applied to do a panel again. I have yet to hear back at all, and I'm like, because I think the schedule should be released tomorrow. At which point I would think I would have been contacted. So I don't know. I hope I get it. We'll find out though.
So you're going to be. Do you have a panel that you're specifically?
Uh,
Uh,
yeah. So I've applied to do a indie comics panel. So last March I did one basically about making comics. I did another one at Fan Expo in August. Both times went very well, and so I've applied to do one for March. So I'm just nervously waiting to hear back. Uh,
hmm.
and Steve White says, "Good evening, folks. Good evening, Steve. Hope you're well."
Hey, Steve. I should grab my tea.
Yep. Hydrate. We've been talking.
Yes, I can do that. That's I think the interesting thing about the people that assume they know what an introvert is, and being one, I can say that like I can be super friendly and super gregarious, but I just need my wife actually explained it really well, which is I need the energy for me to replenish myself comes from quiet, and my parents can attest to this. I've been like that all my life, where I can just be in my room creating, whatever story world I'm creating through clay or paper or whatever it was I was creating back in the day, comic books. I just needed that quiet,
Mhm.
to replenish the energy so that I can be outgoing and have conversations with people. Whereas somebody who's an extrovert needs the people to feed that energy to keep on going. And that's not me. I'm fine being by myself for long periods of time. But it's, I think, and of course there are introverts that are very, very shy and don't have the ability to have that kind of conversation. It's very uncomfortable. But that's never been me. So there are different kinds of introverts for sure.
Massive. Speaking about that, it's funny because I'm a fairly solitary person, right? I don't reach out to people on text a lot. I don't, I'm not going out and partying every day or anything crazy like that. So I spend a lot of time like in front of a computer screen doing my editing, reading a bunch of comic books, stuff like that. And then my partner is her day job is a school teacher, and I truly believe we're both introverts, but she's the kind that does well with other stuff, and then she comes home and just completely shuts down. I'm the kind where I like people enough that I'm like doing stuff like this, creating an interview show so I can get to talk to people and talk about comics all the time. And it's just fascinating the difference. However, I guess the fun question, and feel free to say pass if you like, Keith, because it's a bit of a personal one. But for you and your partner, do you ever find that I don't want to get clinical, but do you ever find that you do essentially parallel play where you might sit down quietly and like draw, and they might do whatever hobby they like, I don't know, draw, read, something, and you're just quiet together in the same room doing your own thing?
Oh, we do it all the time. We work together. If I were to turn my camera around, you'd see her work area, and she's like the only person I've ever really been able to spend almost 24/7 with, because she's an artist as well, and she understands, what I do, and we've over time we've had conversations where I'm like, listen, because she's an extrovert, she needs that kind of energy to feed off of, and I'm not, when I need to replenish my energy, I can't give her that attention she needs. So she's learned that, okay, so I'm going to go talk to friends, I'm going to talk to my family, you can do what you need to do, and then I know where to find you when you are ready to have conversation again. So we've learned over time how to communicate, like when we need that time. And as I said, like I love having her around me all the time. We do things apart as well, where she goes off to do her branding photography. I might do workshops, comic book conventions. So we do have that time apart, but it's just communicating what we need and being able to figure out. Early on in our relationship, I think that I was very clear in my goals, and because I was very clear, there wasn't like a expectation that I was going to change or something. So she knew that I was the type of person that needed time on my own, or time, alone time, but I needed to create, and she never held that against me, and so.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's worked out very well. But I mean, at the same time, I love spending time with her. So because I do, we do have, first of all, we have to make purposeful time for each other, where we focus just on each other, not on our phones. And so that may be taking a walk together, or going to have like a date, for lunch or dinner, or
exactly.
talk to each other and catch up in regards to what's been going on in our life. It's so weird. You can spend time with somebody, but not actually spend time with somebody. And, that is, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, that it's more and more true. How you may not know somebody, even though you've known them for years, right? So you have to put that effort in to to people that are important to you, to make sure you get to know them, to make sure you put the time and effort into them. And I've been very lucky that because of what I do, which can be very time consuming, she's not taken it as anything other than my passion, and she supports it fully, and wants to see me continue this journey I've been on, and same vice versa. I want her to do the same thing with hers, right? So
love to hear it. It's one of those things where I think, yeah, like, and again, I appreciate there's supposed to be a drawing show.
No, we can talk about whatever. I mean, how about with you and your significant other? Do you guys have ways to communicate, when you want time by yourself versus when you want time with each other?
I think for us, the way that it's worked out, we more often than not we'll spend time apart, right? Because again, she's a school teacher, so she's extremely busy, a lot of long hours and stuff. So and I want to be clear, that's never bothered me. One, I support her in doing what she's passionate about, and it is often helping, teach kids art or help build sets for a play, all that kind of stuff. But as a result of that, right, I've just had a lot of time to me, which is totally fair, because I also grew up that way, being an only child, where I'm just like, yeah, this is just me on my own. Cool, I'm going to do what I'm interested in. So then I find what I like is we've naturally fallen into a pattern where I know when I can work, I know when I can do what I want to do stuff like this, and then when it's time to be together, and I know she'll have finished work for the evening or whatever, cool, we can go down, watch TV together, or we can talk through each other's days and catch up about, work, the living part of life, and just, yeah, be there for each other and do that thing called having a relationship, which, yeah, it's fun. But I definitely find, like, there are times where, and I think it's my favorite thing, she's been doing a lot of crochet, and if she's watching, I hope I get the term right, where she's basically crocheting an art piece that she's going to be submitting to a show. So it's very large, and she'll be doing that, and then I might be sitting on my phone. Like, we'll have the TV on for some basically background noise, and then I'll be sitting on my phone doing this because I'm sitting here, like, working through a script or something, and then she'll be doing her crocheting, and then after like an hour, I'll stop and I'll come over. How's your progress going? What are you doing? So we kind of naturally have this ebb and flow of, like, work, decompress time, and then be together, chat, and actually be together. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm more and more consciously aware of, that you have to keep working at being in a relationship, and it's something I'm sure I can work at more and be better at, so I will keep continuing.
Yep.
Yeah. That being said, really quick, Steve White commented, "Cool work. The subject looks like Bill Gaines from EC Comics." I will be Googling that real quick. And Dan Price joins in saying, "It looks quite good." Dan, I hope you're well.
Yeah, I can kind of see with that. It's more me, but yeah, I can see how that would be Bill Gaines.
Oh yeah, okay.
I guess when you get to a certain age, we all kind of some of us start to, the gray hair, the long gray hair, or whatever. Yeah, I thought I would go into colors here.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about this, my process here, it's kind of my very quick and dirty way of coloring.
Well, okay, real quick, how did you turn that thing purple? You like drop down menued something and it just went rainbow purple.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll kind of take a couple steps back here just so that people can kind of. So as you see here, this is all a value. I actually created. This is the black line, and this is what I just clicked off there, right? So that's the value. And if I take that, it's very, very would be flatting.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
very, very rough and dirty flatting job. Um, and I like working in value because I find that, I mean, I can work in color directly and have a pretty good sense of what the value is going to be, but some colors can trick your eye, and so I find that working in value first just makes when I can see what it's going to look like. Um, I mean, I'm not really like I didn't really have any preconceived idea what the colors would be on this, but and the same thing with the values. But I just like to make sure that I have a nice range of value, right? As you can see here, I have some 70-80% gray, some 20-30% gray, some the whole majority of it's 50% gray. So it's a nice range of value that I like to work in. And then one of the things that I've been doing recently is I'll take adjustment layer, which is right here, and I
Good
go
old
to
adjustment
color
layer.
balance, and I will. So the color balance. Let's see. Here we go. So color balance, then you can play
Oh, okay.
over it, and it's not affecting the actual layer itself, right?
Yeah.
So I can just play around with this. I didn't select anything in particular, but if I were to, let's say, just select that, which I did with this one before, and then create um, like a color balance with just what I selected. So now I can play around with just that color now, right?
Oh, right on.
So now I've got green. Now, because the rock and my shirt is like some of these things are all the same. What I may do is then I'll go in with a new layer and actually paint on top with the actual like a color I want to use, and
Okay.
I put everything on that layer, and I go to the menu, the different what is this called? I can't remember this menu is called, but it's essentially where I get to choose the different kinds of lighting choices, right? So I just go to color, and it lets the value kind of come through. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's just a very quick, dirty way of creating a composition, just because I know I don't have a huge amount of time. It also gives me, I'm not really committing to anything here. I mean, if I don't like any of these colors, all I've done is just create
Gone.
this
Yeah.
with layers, and I didn't really spend a whole lot of time, uh, you know,
That's cool.
rendering or anything. All I'm doing is I just want to know what it looks like really quickly, um, and that way, you know, because turn that off. Um, I get a really good view of what it's going to look like. I can decide if I like it. If I don't, I can play around with the colors. With this I can always just change the color.
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it's whatever. It's just a very quick way of playing around. Not my thing is, and I try to pass this on to people that are beginning or are having some blocks with their uh, artistic endeavors. And I'm also applying this to myself, which is you don't want to get tied down. You don't want to start like finishing something and then
Mhm.
realizing, 3/4 of the way through, you're like, oh, this isn't quite working. And I just spent all this time like rendering something that isn't quite working.
Oh,
And all of a sudden you
interesting.
have to go back to try to either, if you're working digitally, you have to undo or hopefully you have a earlier saved version or rework it.
Oh,
And so I think it was Mike Mignola who said like he puts more and more of his work into his thumbnails, right? Into like figuring out all of the composition, the lighting, the value system you're going to create before you get to even start doing anything finished. And that way you can see you're doing it very quickly. I spent 45 minutes on this. You're doing this pretty quickly, and you get to the opportunity to go, yeah, you know what, I don't like this. I mean, this isn't working for me. I'm going to go in a different direction. I mean, arguably speaking, I would spend even less time if I was like figuring out something I was going to. This is a doodle, right? So it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. This was something for a project that I'm getting paid on. I would probably want to do this even quicker and smaller and just rougher and just figure it out really quickly to see what I like and problem solve early on, so that when you get to the more finished stuff, you've figured it all out.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's one that's come up. So previously, like last time we talked, thumbnailing came up, and in the last couple of interviews, I've talked about, or I've been on. My guests and I have gotten into sort of thumbnailing, storyboarding, how that system works. For you, Keith, when it comes to doing your thumbnails, say for just a single page, do you find that you redo the page a few times in thumbnails, or is it like once you started, it starts like a loading bar, 1% down, and then it's, by the time you're at the bottom right, it's done? What does that look like? What, for someone getting into it, what is like normal for thumbnailing?
I don't think there is a normal. I mean, thumbnailing. So, I mean, every artist is going to approach it differently, and potentially every project is going to get them to approach it maybe differently, just depending on if there's a different, could be like a different style that they're trying. So, like, here, I could probably bring up some of my...
Just don't get yourself in trouble. Nothing we're not supposed to see.
Yeah. Let me see. Well, I can probably share...
Can you show us anything from Checkmate?
What's that?
Blues. Can you show us?
I could. Let me...
I just finished reading it a while back. I really liked it.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Let's see where I got my... Here we go.
For those of you out there tuning in, while Keith pulls it up, this is Checkmate Blues. It is really good. Keith did the art in it. It is a existential, I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like, it's a horror thing. It's one of those, be careful what you wish for kind of deals. It's just got such a vibe to it. It's about two people who meet up, play chess, and a third spectator is there sort of probing their conversation, and it's the journey of that conversation and what happens, which is really cool.
Let's see, I'll go to, yeah, so it's I would say murder mysteries. Two gangsters in 1950s Toronto mysteriously end up in front of a chessboard, and to figure out how they got there, they begin playing a game of chess and unravel the mystery of who they are. And this is, so I'm just going, it's been a while since I've worked on it, so I'm just kind of going very fresh with, I'm not sure exactly, I'm just pulling up what my, I guess, original thumbnails would have been. And as you can see here, I mean, these are very rough, and I don't necessarily approach, I've probably changed the way I do thumbnails since this, but you can see that I'm kind of thinking about not only the composition, but I'm thinking about like where the word balloons are going.
Yeah.
Right? And this is just probably my first pass, or I can't remember if I did any other passes here. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, like this is probably my first pass at just what I think it should be. It's really just for me. This isn't necessarily even going to be seen by the writer. I just want to pace it out. I read the script. I'll read the script a couple of times, get a sense of like some of the key, moments and make sure I understand like how it's going to play out visually, like to see how the dialogue is going to play out with the visuals, and so again, this is where I'm doing all my planning, all my problem solving, and then so this then is a little bit more of a refined version of it.
That's
So
so
now
cool to see.
now I'm blocking it in a little bit more. Getting a sense of light and dark on this, starting to actually, like, I think I'm starting to go in with like some perspective, going in with the figures, like actually making the figures a little bit more like the figures are going to be. And I think that what I like about this stage is you get some really fun, immediate, like a figure. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm just looking now. You can see right here, this is the third person you're talking about. I can draw it in color so people can see.
This is super cool for me, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool.
So, it's too big. There we go. Okay. Here we go. So you got this character, and the way I'm just like, you've seen how I doodle, and I'm just laying in the black for this character, and even the way his face is kind of shaded, there's something about that there's a really cool essence, character, gesture you got. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. Really cool gesture in this little figure. This is a little thumbnail. Like, I've blown this up to 200%. So the actual size I'm working, is like a couple inches by like 6 inches or whatever. And so there's something about that to me that I try to keep fresh as I'm getting to a more finished illustration. And it's really hard because sometimes when you start really refining it, you lose that energy. And that's the balance between this rough drawing and the finished that a lot of artists are always trying to hold on to. And my process now is I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I'm just going to leave some of this in. I may just blow this up to the comic book size, and it's a little pixelated, so I may sharpen it a little bit, but try to keep it right, clean it up, keep it, because you know what? I don't believe that, and this is me speaking with where I want my journey to go. I don't necessarily believe that things have to be like super technically correct. If the emotion, if the reader fills in the blanks with their own imagination, that's good enough for me. It doesn't. I don't have to do it for them. It doesn't have to be a super detailed, clean, perfectly drawn character. There could be errors in it, as long as it doesn't throw the reader out. As long as they're in for the ride, I'm and that's what I'm trying to. That's where the journey I'm trying to take right now. That's why the doodle for me has become much more important, because that's where a lot of the energy is, and you want to keep that energy to the end. And so for me, it's been the journey I've taken is that I've been afraid of letting that rawness show. I'm always like, what are people going to think that I can't draw well? And now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I know I can draw decently, right? I know I can draw it better if I wanted to, or better. I can more refined if I wanted to is probably a better way of saying it. I can draw it more refined if I wanted to, but maybe I don't want to. And as long as the audience is on board for it, and I guess really the audience will find me if that's the thing they like, right? So, I don't think that you may get some people going, oh yeah, I'm not really into this kind of art. I like things that are like super detailed. And I'm like, okay, I like that too. Nothing wrong with it. But I think that hopefully I'll find people that are along that kind of journey with me that like that rawness, the unfinished look to it that will spark their imagination, right? And so this, I look at this, that one little panel, and I just love it. like I keep on looking at it and going, there's just, and I don't know if I captured it that well. I was still kind of going through it. I'm still working on this journey. So, you know, but I really tried to keep that kind of, you know, I did capture
plays that real good.
but I still think this is better. If I had to be honest, it's a little bit better. There's just something about it, and to figure out I think the current me, because I did Checkmate Blues a couple of years ago. The current me would probably just blow that up and just, you know, maybe refine it a little bit and keep it.
Interesting.
Reuse it. Why not? It's digital. It doesn't matter. It just, you know, I mean, the pixelation of it, it's not. I'm not blowing it up so big so that's super pixelated, super blurry looking. And I can just, if I wanted to make it a little bit blurry anyway, it's, you know, I don't have to.
Solve. Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, thumbnails are mainly for, you know, like the people that need to see them. You know, whether it's your writer partner or your editor, letterer, you know, whoever needs to see them, and you know, they can be as finished as you want. Like my thumbnails for certain projects are actually more finished than this. I don't know if it's for this. I think I changed that process a little bit after this, where I would actually go. Actually, I could probably show the my Bracetown from Toronto Comics, because I know that they want us to like start getting that out there. So I think I can do that. I don't see that as a problem. The writer and the editor have already seen it, so
this is cool.
yeah, I'm not gonna let me see. I'll block out some of this here. People may have seen some of it, but I can block some of it out because I don't want to reveal too much of the story.
Fair. Here, you know what? I will take your screen off, and then you let me know when you're ready.
What did I just do that?
While you're doing it, one thing I do want to ask, because I have heard time and time again where writers or creators will get the book back from an artist, and it's absolutely like, stunning. It's got so much detail, and then they've got to drop word bubbles in there, and all of a sudden they're covering up all the art. Like I've heard Mike Mignola goes through that where the art that he makes will be incredible, and he's like, oh yeah, but I need a word bubble, so just and all of that art is now gone. Or with him, you know, huge, extremely detailed thing, heavy black ink. So do you find for you that you just start blocking out your word bubbles that early, just so that that's not a problem?
Yeah, so it depends on if I'm working on my own from beginning to you can share it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can here's the first 5 pages. So you can see how finished these.
And this is thumbnail.
These are my thumbnails. Yeah. So
okay, that's so cool.
Yeah. So they'll start out rougher than this, and then I'll refine them a bit more. But they're so small that it's still really hard for me to, like you can see here, it's really hard for me to get into some of the detail of the characters in the background and stuff like that. Like it's not, I can't really put a huge amount of detail into the face of these characters. I just have to, or the back, like any of the background characters, like when they're closer up, I can do a bit better. But if you look at that one between this guy and this guy here, she's just, not super detailed, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's just basic shapes.
Yeah. So I'm really here, I'm just trying to, make sure I'm getting the energy of it. And, I think I changed on this character here. I actually reworked this a bit. Yeah, this is all just like to try to save as much time as possible, to get as much of the energy as possible. And then I'll blow it up to comic book size. And some of it I keep because I don't need to redraw it. And some of it I redraw because it needs to be refined. It just depends. But to answer your question, so in regards to this process with the Bracetown, I kind of let the art first. I'm always aware of where dialogue can go, but because I would be doing the lettering on it, I wasn't so concerned earlier on about like laying out the letters. But if I'm working with a letterer, what I may do is I'll take like the thumbnails, put it into Illustrator at a comic book size, and then I'll actually rough in the word balloons myself, just very quickly, just to get an idea of what it looks like. Because then I can go back and change in the thumbnail stage. I can rework the art pretty quickly, right? So that's how I always, when it comes to, I think of the letters, the artists as well. I know I don't see that there's hierarchy per se. I think we're all equal in the team, and I want to make sure whoever I'm working with has the best abilities that they have to be able to be the artist that they want to be. So yeah, I don't necessarily want them covering up my art, but if I can control it in a way where, you know, their letter art is able to shine along with my art, that's what I try to do, because it's, as far as I'm concerned, this is just as important. If that dialogue throws somebody out, then the art doesn't matter, right? So it's all important. And I've done enough lettering to know, to get a sense of, like, you know, how for the most part, how to make sure that my art has places where the lettering can go. You know, I mean, dialogue can be changed a bit easier at the end versus art, right? That's more it's not the letter, that's the writing part of it, where you can, you know, minimize some of the words. It's always, I've worked with writers who are newer and who they don't always, and I can say for myself, I do the same thing, where it's hard to parse your words, to like minimize. You know, so it's one of those things where I have to let the writer know, hey, there's a lot of words on this page. You have to make a decision. Is it really important to say all these things? Because that means art's not going to be, you know, what you want me to draw isn't going to be seen, right? So you have to make sure that the writer, beginning writer, knows like how many words they should have in a panel, how many panels or how many word balloons in a page, all that kind of stuff, right? How many words in a word balloon and how many words total on a page they should have, right? And then, you know, with writers that I work with or who are very experienced, it's not an issue, but I want to make sure that that everything balances very well, right?
Yeah, like that reminds me of I don't know the specific quote, unfortunately, but I know there is a quote that exists. So for the folks watching, go Google this. I believe it's Alan Moore very specifically talks about word bubbles, the number of words on a page that you should have, as sort of like a general guideline of what will create a good reading experience as a comic book reader, without minimizing art, without taking away from story. Yeah, it's interesting. And again, I wish I knew the exact quote, but basically what you just said. And it was really interesting when I first came across that as someone who was into comics, because it was one of the first things I think I remember getting in my brain, whether it's reading or I saw a clip or whatever, that got me thinking about the behind the scenes of making comics. And it was one of those cool things.
Yeah. Well, and just in regard, I know we have to wrap this up shortly, but in regards to the amount of words on a page, you know, like there's a general rule, but if you're a well-established writer and you know what your artist is capable of, you can put more, you know, like when you have like a team that's just very experienced, you can have a lot of words on a page. Just be aware. So here's the thing. So I'll give an example of a story, like a comic book I just reread, or a comic book miniseries, which is Avengers Forever from the early 2000s, Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco. I don't remember who the letterer is, unfortunately, or the colorist. That's slipping my mind. Maybe Richard Starking. Anyway, but the thing is, Carlos Pacheco, his art is beautiful, and he puts so much detail and so much. He puts so many figures. He's like similar to George Perez in regards to like how many figures he'll put into like a panel. And Kurt
Okay.
Busiek, he is. I love his writing. I just love his world building and the story. I was drawn in. I loved it, but it was dense. What I mean by dense was there was a lot of words and a lot of art, and
Yeah.
so that's going to slow you down. It's going to take a lot more focus. A beginning reader would probably. I don't know if I'd recommend that book to them because there's just a lot to take in. It's for sure a master class in a comic book storytelling, I think.
Mhm.
But there is a time and a place for a story like that. If it was like a kind of an Elseworlds type story or multiverse type story. So you can get away with a lot of that exposition and
Yeah.
you're even though the characters are familiar, you're still having to do a lot of uh, getting the audience caught up with the history of the Marvel universe. And then there's some storytellers that are very sparse in how many words they use. They know how to let the artist, shine through, I guess. And that's and that means it's going to be a pretty quick read because there isn't as many words to read. And art, even though you may like looking at it, your eye goes by it by like within like a second, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's there can be great stories that way too. I think it just depends on. It'll depend on the story, depends on the art team. If they can carry a lot of words in that way, where the art will still shine through.
Mhm.
Um, and like I think of I feel like Robert Kirkman with The Walking Dead. I know there was some places where there was a lot of dialogue, but there was also places where there was none. It was just
Oh yeah.
it breathes really well in some places where the art just there's hardly a word balloon for like pages. And even when it was a bit more dense with dialogue, I never found it was like super dense throughout the story. So I could read like a whole issue within like probably almost half the time I would read a normal comic. It just felt like there was a lot of that breathing, right? It just depends on the story and depends on the team, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And like I'm gonna appreciate. We'll wrap this up really soon, but that sort of got me thinking about. I definitely remember. I can't recall at this time specific issues or anything, but I definitely remember reading the comics from DC, like probably Justice League or something, where you're going through the book and they're just between exposition, um, sheer dialogue, and then whenever they have like one of those square balloons come up where it's like in the year blah 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 on planet blah blah, you're like, okay, cool. um and then between all of that and then the just super dense art where they're maybe showing the entire Justice League and the Watchtower, and you're like, okay, I need a second to like process this thing before I actually read it. um because yeah, like that, I find for me it slows me down literally,
Hmm.
but it impedes my ability to take in what I'm trying to. um
Hmm.
and then I find a bit of advice I would give anyone out there reading comics is basically, um, if you skim read when you read, like if you can read books really quick, don't read comics that way, because you will flip through a single floppy in like 2 minutes, because you can. Uh, I always recommend take a breath, slow down, and do a whole breath per page, because otherwise you're going to miss so much in the art, so many little details. And that's just what I find myself doing, because otherwise I can flip through books and just be like, okay, cool, yeah, I read that, but it's like, did you read it or did you just get a
Yeah.
concept of it?
Yeah, I you know what? I do that a little bit myself. I'm rereading a lot of my comic books, and I find that I'm like, okay, I've got to get through this because I've got so much more to read. and I try to like remember. Wait, hold on a second here. I may never read this again. Like this may be like
Right?
so many comics. There's only so much time in the world to be able to read comics. So I want to take time and appreciate it. And I do try to balance that, like to actually enjoy the story and linger a little bit longer in the art and think a little bit more about like what's happening dialogue wise in the story and stuff. So yeah, I do agree. You need to, if you want to really appreciate a story, at least if you're going to reread it, maybe uh, uh, yeah, like if you're going to reread it, then go back to it and take that time.
Yeah.
If you don't really want to take too much time in the first pass, but the other thing to think about from the creator point of view, I mean, it could take you months to create the story that somebody reads in 2 minutes, right?
Right?
So,
Like that's one thing that always blows my mind. Like the sheer amount of time it takes to make
yep,
just this, and to think someone could pick this up and read this whole thing in like 2-3 minutes, and it's just like,
yeah,
okay. But yes, that being said, we're 10 minutes past the hour. Keith, once again, absolutely thank you for coming, hanging out with me on my Sketchy Goodness with Keith Grachow, #2.
yeah,
I definitely foresee this becoming a regular thing. I know I've had a blast.
yeah, me
And
too.
yeah, is there anything else that you want the folks out there, whether they're on Instagram, Twitch, or YouTube, to know?
Oh well, if you live in the Toronto area, I will be a guest at Toronto Comic Con. I'm premiering a redux of a story I created with Howard Wong called Dead to Us, which was originally in Toronto Comics Anthology #3 as a black and white version of it, and this one has like new dialogue. It's in color. There is some slight art changes, so it'll be hopefully a new experience for anybody who's read the original. So that will be premiering at Toronto Comics.
Nice.
I showed the Toronto Comics Anthology Bracetown story, so that I believe we're going to be doing a Kickstarter for that soon. I know that you and I are actually going to be talking with Andrew Stevenson in a couple of weeks to go over that.
Yes.
So I can kind of, if people are watching now, come back and Andrew can answer questions in regards to the publishing aspect of Toronto Comics, and he's been doing this now for years. Yeah, so we're going to be doing that together. I've got a workshop coming up. Oh, let me get the date right here. If anybody lives in Cambridge, Ontario, I will be doing a workshop at Hero's Tale on the 23rd of March. So it's the weekend after Toronto Comic Con, and that's a free workshop to create a comic page in a day. It's a 2-hour workshop from 1 to 3 at the Hero's Tale in Cambridge.
Very cool.
Yeah, I guess hopefully we'll see each other. Well, it may not be maybe in 2 weeks, and I can remind everybody. I mean, before we're going to try to do this on a bi-weekly basis, right? So,
Yeah, actually, while we're here.
yeah, it would be the day before Toronto Comic Con, so I don't see we can talk about that then.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk about the show and what it's like at a comic book convention and all that kind of stuff. So
I think that's a fantastic idea. And yeah, absolutely, to the folks out there across the internet, Instagram, I know you're out there, YouTube, Twitch. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. And let me know in the comments what you thought of the drawing, the conversation, and feel free to leave questions for next time. Have a good one.